Before I open the floor, I would ask you to please rise.
The Parliament observed a moment of silence. The President of the Bundestag, Norbert Lammert, set the tone for the debate.
We are ashamed that both the state and federal security services were unable to uncover or prevent these crimes in a timely manner. Crimes that were planned and carried out over a number of years.
3 neo-Nazis allegedly carried out 10 separate murders and other brutal attacks. Until 2 weeks ago, the authorities had been saying the crimes were isolated acts carried out within the Turkish-German community. Now it turns out the killings were committed by right-wing extremists. For years, investigators were oblivious to what was going on.
It's very hard to accept, and it fills me with grief and shame. This marks a serious crisis of confidence in our intelligence service. Could this series of murders have been prevented? Yes, if there had been a systematic response, it's possible it could have been prevented.
Heinz Fromm, the beleaguered director of the Federal Domestic Intelligence Service, has admitted that his agency failed to do its job. It ignored signs that neo-Nazi extremists were involved in what the tabloid press have dubbed the Döner murders, an allusion to Döner kebab, Turkish fast food popular in Germany. The title of this CD is Döner Killers, and it became popular in neo-Nazi circles over a year ago. The lyrics mock the police investigators, who are clueless. They've lost all trace of the killer, says the song. In July, the Domestic Security Agency published its annual report for last year. It states, in 2010, again, there were no indications of right-wing terrorist structures in Germany. But the signs were there. In 2004, a neo-Nazi gang was arrested for a crime spree in Brandenburg. The gang carried out a series of attacks on Asian fast food restaurants. Although no one was hurt, the property damage was considerable. The state prosecutor took a bold step. He charged them not only with arson, but with forming a terrorist cell.
When we filed the charges, there was a certain amount of grumbling in the media. They said I had gone overboard in the fight against right-wing extremism. Many people assumed the trial would end in an acquittal and that I would effectively be damaging Brandenburg's reputation for no good reason.
But the men were convicted, and the arson spree was recognized as right-wing terrorism. But this was a rare event. Normally, little public attention was paid to organized violence on the far right, even when weapons belonging to neo-Nazi gangs were found, like in Thüringen. Berlin's outgoing regional interior minister Erhard Körting says he's often seen his fellow public officials trivialize acts of right-wing violence.
In the past, I have sometimes had the impression that at the federal level and in arguments made by policymakers at the federal level, the threat of right-wing extremism was not taken as seriously as other extremist threats.
Since the terrorist attacks of 9/11, the authorities have focused their attention on radical Islamists, with some success. A number of potentially violent groups were uncovered before they could carry out attacks. But experts say that in the process, the potential for right-wing terror was ignored.
If we had had 3 Islamist bomb makers who had built bombs in Germany and fled to Afghanistan, the entire intelligence service would have spent years hunting them down, with all the resources German police and intelligence services have at their disposal.
In response to the latest revelations, the government says it will do more to combat right-wing terrorism. Proposals include overhauling and centralizing the intelligence services, withdrawing dubious informants, and improving the sharing of information between federal and state agencies. But politicians are also divided on the issue of how much data the government should be allowed to have. Angering some of her colleagues, Federal Justice Minister Sabine Leuthäuser-Schnarrenberger opposes certain data storage.
If I refuse to retain data on certain people, that makes it impossible for investigators and intelligence agencies to recognize links between them and to keep them from doing harm. The Justice Minister's stance is now doing us serious harm.
Germany's parliamentarians are presenting a united front in condemning right-wing terrorism. But the parties are not as united when it comes to deciding exactly how to fight it.